Ciao a tutti, da El Chupacabra di Grappling-Italia, sono qui con un'intervista davvero speciale. L'ospite di oggi è un ospite internazionale di caratura veramente mondiale, ha un curriculum di più di 20 anni, più di 30 anni in moltissime arti marziali, wrestling, top level wrestler, Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, then Kali, and then MMA was the logical step. Gli faremo delle domande, l'intervista sarà in inglese, poi sotto ci saranno I sottotitoli. So, Greg, tell a little bit about yourself for the people who don't know you. Who did you train? What's your background and everything?
Basically, I started out as a wrestler.
Okay.
Actually, a wrestler and a gymnast.
Okay.
So, combining those two is very natural. So then, I also did a little bit when I was growing up boxing. And very basic martial arts, but just because I liked it.
Okay.
In 1983, I met Rick Fay.
Okay.
And with Rick Fay, I learned how to do Jean Fan martial arts, Kali. So really started to build up the mentality of seeing all these different kickboxing arts and how to blend my wrestling into that. Okay. And then through that natural progression, we met Guru Dan Inosanto, Achan Chai, Yuri Nakamura,
okay.
And then Professor Pedro Sauer. And then what's also very, it's funny, as I grew up from high school age with Eric Paulson, because he lived in Minnesota.
Ah, really? Okay.
So we knew each other before martial arts through gymnastics, because he was a gymnast too.
Okay.
And so we knew each other through that, and it was just naturally that we gravitated and became great friends, and he also became one of my instructors for CSW.
Okay, so. Perfect. So, okay. And speaking of Jeet Kune Do and all the way you train, do you think the Jeet Kune Do can be considered like no rules MMA, or it's something a bit more different? What's your take on
I think
Jeet Kune Do?
The Jeet Kune Do was primarily for self-defense, really thinking about what would happen in a real fight.
Okay.
And so, of course, to do to really bring it up to a high level, even Bruce Lee, put on the boxing gloves and the shin guards and they spar, so they had to learn how to do kickboxing and boxing and then wrestling and judo and jiu-jitsu. But his mentality was, how can this work in a real street fight? Okay. And so, of course, there are techniques that will work for sure from that are very traditional Jean Fan, Jeet Kune Do techniques that will work great in a fight, in an MMA fight.
Okay.
But then other things like the eye pokes and the groin kicks and some of the trapping is very, obviously against the rules for some of it, and the other part is sometimes it's hard to pull the trapping off. But you can get on the ground. This is where things come alive. Where now, if you use your imagination, you go back and you pick and choose those things from Jeet Kune Do, you can pull them off on the ground. All the trapping drills and all that stuff. So it's very important to keep all those thoughts in mind as far as techniques, but more so is the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, which pretty much was about what? Individual research and expression.
Perfect.
And that's the big thing.
Perfect. So tell us about it's very recent that the international commitment, they commit, just take away the wrestling from Olympics, and in Italy there was of course there is a big shock because Olympics was one of the founding pillar of the Olympics. On the other side, it could be a good thing for the wrestling from our European point of view, because it takes away all these we call the vulture that just want to gravitate where there is money. So now it's going to be back a bit more pure, and from a very egoistic point of view for the MMA, maybe it's better because after the college, the natural way to go is no longer the training for Olympics, but training for MMA. So, okay, it's bad to say, but in a way, what the committee did can be good for MMA. I know that you have a very strong wrestling, so probably your opinion is different from what we were speaking, what's your theory about that?
For me personally, I think it's really a tragedy because for wrestling, like you said, was one of the founding pillars of the Olympics.
Yes.
Running, throwing, jumping, and wrestling.
Exactly.
I mean, that was part of from the beginning. The second thing is, with wrestling, people from every country in the world can bring wrestlers in there. Because there's no equipment, there's nothing. You can learn how to wrestle. And so that's one thing that's going to take some of these countries that were very great wrestlers. In fact, they're probably more known for their wrestling than many. It's going to be now, what are these people going to do? So it also, the little kids, when they have a dream, they want to dream to be in the Olympics, and that kind of keeps the fire burning.
Okay.
And of course they can say, yeah, I want to wrestle and become a great collegiate wrestler, and then maybe a world champion.
Okay.
But ultimately, the pinnacle is Olympic champion.
But why don't you think that it's possible to make like real Olympics, like with just wrestling, boxing, athletics, and pancration?
Yeah.
And that's the real old school, like make a new foundation from Olympics.
If they did something like that, that would be great.
But don't you think that because it's very strong in America, American has very like cultural stuff of doing things, that maybe this can be okay. For some year you are lost, but then say okay, better because Olympics now is lost. Is really sport and the top fighter, because I don't want to say anything, but curling or like all this kind of stuff, they cannot match with wrestling or like some high level sport. So maybe all this kind of medal, the longer you get watered down. They are no longer real, like being a gold medal. If any sport can go and win for nothing. So maybe don't you think that maybe something better will grow up from this?
Well, I mean, obviously the FILA, the International Wrestling Committee, they have already adopted grappling, submission grappling into the game. So when we do the World Championships or the trials for the World Championships in the United States, we have freestyle, Greco, and submission grappling all happening in the same spot. And in fact, FILA also adopted sand wrestling. For the countries that do not have mats, they fight in the sand. And so we have that in the U.S. now as well. But a lot of the Olympics and the U.S. Olympic people were having problems because of MMA, because now some of the great wrestlers, instead of going to fight for a medal, decided, hey, I want to make money. I want to get paid for my thing. So what happened is, in the United States, if you win a gold medal in wrestling, you will get $250,000.
Okay.
If you win a silver medal, you're going to get $100,000. So now there is another incentive to get a gold medal and get more money than you would get even in MMA. But there's only one person that will get paid, and that is no guarantee, because you have to win the gold medal against the whole world. So, now I don't think. Well, we have a problem in the United States too, where more and more wrestling programs are getting cut because of funding, because of different sports that they want to bring in. So there's a lot of colleges that were very great wrestling programs got their wrestling programs cut. So there's a problem with that, and now with that there's of course less colleges. But ultimately, our goals as wrestlers and people who want to see this art grow and become strong and continue to become strong is that, when we have more opportunities, then there's going to be more kid programs, there's going to be more, opportunities for the kids that get better and better. They can pay for their college with the wrestling skill. So that is something that's big for us. The other thing too, I would tell you this. If you have never wrestled in a Division I or you have a Division II or even a Division III college room, it is the most intense environment that you could imagine, because everybody there was a state champion or was very good, and now they're all fighting to be in one spot.
I remember the movie like Crazy for You. From the 80s was.
So they are fighting for one spot day after day. For the whole season, and then the season after that. So what happens is the guys get very tough. Now I get a collegiate wrestler, we bring them into MMA, it's easy because they understand how to train hard, to push, to just go until pretty much they die.
Yeah.
But a kid from high school or who hasn't had that experience, they may know wrestling, they may be pretty good at wrestling, but that intense environment, it's hard to, you cannot simulate that. So you get a guy like that, and you see the best wrestlers, Johnny Hendricks, you know, and Josh Koscheck, you know, Randy Couture, you know, in my case we have Jacob Volkman, we have Nick Lentz. They all wrestle, you know, high-level collegiate wrestling, so they understand pushing.
Yes.
So now, you know, hopefully you take the Olympics out, and then all of a sudden something else gets taken out, then something else gets taken out, and pretty soon you lose wrestling.
Yeah.
But I know there's going to be a lot of upheaval in Russia, in the Eastern Bloc countries, because they live for wrestling. And so that's a big part of the world. China, Japan, India, Iran, all have great wrestling programs. Turkey, you know. So there's going to be a lot of people fighting, and you know, they're still thinking that, well, we're still 7 sports, and we may add one back in, so they're still going to fight for it. Yeah, so it's not, the fight's not over. But I think it all comes down to money. They want to bring some sports in that people, like skateboarding or whatever. But that's, how many countries in the world are going to bring in great skateboarders?
Of course.
Not as many.
That's not Olympics, so it's
sad.
Okay. Coming back to your seminar, you did you're going to make like 3 seminars. One was clinch to take down, the other one was pure jiu-jitsu with the nogi, and today we did the JKD to MMA connection. And listening to you was very good because of anything that you told. Do you think that for a Jeet Kune Do teacher, how is what is a step for a Jeet Kune Do teacher that now is falling in love with MMA, especially in Italy or like the non-American country? So it's the MMA are coming now strong. What's the step he should do to become to keep his background, but having step in his evolution in teaching?
Yeah, I think, you know, as a Jeet Kune Do instructor, you know, remember the whole premise of JKD is to research and develop, and to all constantly evolve, and it's about, you know, self-expression. And so there's the same things that you did with your martial art, you can now swing a few things to go to mixed martial arts, because ultimately the goal is in mixed martial arts to be great in striking, kicking, punching, kickboxing, knee, elbow, you know, everything that has to do with striking, and then very good in the clinch, in dirty boxing and infighting, which could bring in elements of trapping, Panatukan, the Filipino martial arts, we use it all. And so now you get into the grappling and wrestling and judo, all right, and for takedowns. So now there's entire arts that will not only help you in MMA, but also in the street and self-defense of a Jeet Kune Do practitioner. And then obviously the grappling and groundwork. And if you're fully committed to develop a full game, you're going to also develop the ranges on the ground. I'm on my back, I can kick, all right? I can still elbow and punch, I can elbow and punch on the top. So it still is research and developing, you know, very good, solid fighting skills. It's just now, obviously there's a few rules. You can't attack a groin, you can't pull hair, you can't poke the eyes, but just the intensity and the way they train, now it kind of, I think it opens up the door, and people who are really utilize the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do can become great MMA trainers because they know how to think outside the box. They create different training methods. They know how to blend things together, and that's important.
Do you think there is like at the beginning it was like jiu-jitsu, then wrestling came over, then striker with the takedown defense? What do you think is the next evolution of MMA, like Kali or something like that? Do you think?
Well, I think the next generation of MMA is the kids that are growing up now are going to grow up pure MMA fighters. Because even this generation, we're seeing wrestlers come in and become MMA fighters. Strikers come in to be MMA fighters. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt world champions come in to learn MMA fighting. And then all of a sudden, it's happening right now. Kids are becoming not only good wrestlers but good submission grapplers. And then they learn how to strike. And then, or they're striking and they know jiu-jitsu. So now they have to learn how to wrestle. But then the next evolution is they're going to grow up doing mixed martial arts, and they know it from the ground up. You know, grappling, striking, submission, and that I think now is going to really make the best athlete go against the best athlete, because everybody's going to kind of have an idea already how to do all the ranges very well. Now I think that's going to be the next evolution.
Okay, last question. Okay, last two questions. You have trained so many champions, and okay, maybe the most famous for the big public is Brock Lesnar. You told us some insight about his strategy when he won with Mir, and you also told us that he was a very good athletics, and he was actually a very good, not a very strong puncher and very strong kicker, because of course in our website there was a big war about that. Yeah. What about in the dream match of Fedor against Lesnar? Do you think what's the result, and what could have been the strategy of Lesnar?
I think, like, if you go back to the first Brock Lesnar before he was sick, that was a different animal. Yeah. He was fast, intense. He was very eager to learn. Okay. He was. It was very easy to teach. Okay. So we, if we said, okay, here's this going to be the strategy, and we bring in, and he had the money to bring in experts. So we would bring in the top jiu-jitsu guy. We would bring in very good wrestlers. We would fly in guys that would mimic Fedor. Okay. You know, their whole job would be to mimic him and try to punch like him, try to move like him, and get beat up, whatever. But they get paid for it, so it's their job. And so at that point in time, I think the original Brock Lesnar, who had that very strong capacity to learn and was hungry, he really wanted to fight. That person right there, that was a man that was hard to beat. Okay. You know, because you think of what, after he got caught by Mir, the second fight, he demolished him. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then of course Randy was much lighter, and so we had a totally different strategy. And in fact, with Randy Couture, we told him not to do certain things because we didn't really want to hurt Randy if we didn't have to. Okay. If he was getting beat, then do whatever you have to. But otherwise, because he outweighed him by 40, 50 pounds. Totally, so, we didn't have to do some. Heath Herring, man, we just do whatever he can. He's young, only his third fight, so we're punching and hitting. Yeah. But he was so athletic and so explosive that he could beat a lot of very good strikers. Yeah. So it's important that for Fedor, we would have done the same thing. How can we get this to the ground, but into a position where he can flatten him out and start to use his big hammer fist, his giant fist, his elbows, all right? And then up on the feet, keep it very simple. Use the length, and the biggest thing, of course, with Fedor, you'd have to watch out, is that big overhand right, which has knocked out many people. So we would bring in the guys to mimic him. But I think that would have, the healthy, strong, athletic, motivated Brock Lesnar, I think that would have been a great fight. Yeah, it would have been a great fight.
Last one. So you have trained a lot of top fighter, and for what I was told, that usually the problem with the biggest ego are not the top fighter, but are like, the wannabe fighter that just enter the gym. Also in Italy, is not the top fighter in the gym at the top of the chain, but usually are just the new one that want to show off. What's your experience about that? What's the ego of?
Yeah, definitely. There's a big difference on the fighter who's in the UFC or at the high-level show, because most of those guys have already been beat. Okay. They understand that, man, with one punch, one kick, one knee, I could be the one getting beat. So the only reason that you see them that they look cocky is because the UFC tells them, hey, when you do the interview, make yourself look like you want to kill the guy. But they're usually friends. Everybody's friends. Yeah. There's a few grudge matches. They really don't like each other. But for the most part, everybody talks to each other. Yeah. And after the fight, they talk more. But it's very interesting. The younger fighters, they come in and a lot of them are very cocky. Yeah. They think that they're something special, but they haven't proven themselves yet. They haven't fought. They haven't really developed. And they come in and they feel like you owe them something. Okay. It's like, and they don't think they have to pay. It's very strange, but because a lot of those guys, didn't come up learning martial arts, so they don't understand the respect for an instructor, for your fellow students, for your training partners. So it's a funny thing. So my goal is, you know, to try to develop that that level of, you know, gratitude and respect and loyalty that comes along with martial arts into those fighters. And in my school, it's very easy. Either you follow the rules or you go.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't need, you know, I tell them we don't need you, you know. I mean, if you're nice, we like you, but if you're not going to help us out, we don't need you.
Okay. And speaking of your gym, where do you teach? And if one Italian want to learn your system, which is very, very good in basic, very good in strategies, very complex system, and where you can learn in Europe or coming to America, or tell us about your gym and your system, your program.
For my gym, it's in Minnesota.
Okay.
It's in a suburb of Minneapolis.
Okay.
So, and our website is at www.theacademymn.com, so they can see, you know, about.
You have also a Facebook page, which is very active, and which is
on my Facebook page. Just look up Greg Nelson. You can also look up Minnesota Martial Arts.
Okay.
And so you can look up those two Facebook pages. And as far as in Europe, you can go to Barcelona.
Okay.
We have the Barcelona Martial Arts Academy there, and Michael Diaz-Vedo, he trains and teaches there. He's one of my instructors. Started when he was a kid. And what we're doing now is I'm starting to develop more of a mixed martial arts, you know, system and curriculum that people can utilize. And so my goal with that is we're finishing up like a videotape series with different levels, and the goal is there's going to be an area to develop wrestling, develop the jiu-jitsu, develop the striking, and then how to blend it together.
Okay, so also people from Italy can come to Barcelona or can come to your
always
gym.
Open, very easy.
Perfect.
Always easy.
For your website, there will be some DVD and everything. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Greg, you have been wonderful.
Awesome.
Also in the interview and in the seminar.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right.
Ciao a tutti, a Grappling-Italia, dal vostro Ciupacabra.